Okay, I think I'm audible now. Okay, done, done. Okay, so today, if you have attended all the sessions, you will be able to link up something. Link up what? In the first session, Dr. Anshuman Rai rightly pointed out the entire structure of the presentation that will be done by you, right? In the next session, it was Ramanuj sir who was telling you that how do you identify the gaps in your research? How do you identify that which part should be researched? How to identify which part has got enough evidence and which part needs to be researched? That is, you go to the frontiers of research, and after you go to the frontiers, after that, uh, okay, after you go to the frontiers, you uh, start with the research question, that which specific question you want to ask. Okay, so with this background, we are now coming to the next session, which is variables, tools, and techniques. Now, if you can look at this slide, I was coming to this slide in the first part, that research question, title, objectives. So whatever is a research question in your mind, you fix up the title according to that, and there are two ways arrows. That is, these arrows can be changed at any time. Ramanuja spoke about discussing with your guide about continuously changing your research topic and research questions. So these arrows goes two ways, and you refine your research question, you refine your title, and refine your objectives according to the guidelines that Amrita madam told you. Okay. Now, the next important part I would like to talk about is about the conceptual framework. So what is the conceptual framework? Whenever you're doing the research, to link up your research question with the actual research, you will need to have the conceptual framework in mind. I shall give an example of conceptual framework. It is something like you have a diagram in your mind of what is happening. Okay. Suppose you are trying to see the IFA consumption with increased hemoglobin level. So you have got a diagram that, okay, IFA consumption, arrow, hemoglobin will increase, something like that. We have this kind of diagrams all over our medical textbooks. Okay. This conceptual framework will give you something known as variables. Okay. And these conceptual frameworks will guide the design of the techniques, but with the help of which you shall be able to elicit the variables. Lastly, I would like to mention that your variables will come. So all these steps go hand in hand. Okay. So now I'm coming to an example. An example will help you to understand the things better. Okay. So we have got a research question that, though this is another of the examples which Ramanuj sir talked about, that this is a very like niche example, and enough research has already been done on this. So maybe you do not need to do the research. But what I want to mention that this research, suppose this research is being done. Okay. So your research question is something like, what is the relationship between hypertension and smoking? So you have got this kind of a conceptual diagram in your mind. In the middle part, there is something known as hypertension. We call hypertension as the outcome of the dependent variable. Ramanujan sir told about PICO. PICO, the O was for outcome. So this hypertension is for the dependent variable. Here it is not an interventional study. So it is an observational study. Even there, then you have got a definite outcome in your mind. You are trying to see what is the relationship between hypertension and smoking. This is a research question. Research question should always be neutral. If the research question is not neutral, then you are not going to be you are going to be very biased as a researcher. You do not want to become a biased researcher. Okay. So your research question is, what is the relationship between hypertension and smoking? So smoking is another circle, hypertension is one circle, and see the direction of the arrow. So smoking is the independent variable here, and smoking is influencing the hypertension. So the arrow goes from here to here. Now, in this diagram, often known as the conceptual framework or the causal diagram, we have got salt intake as a proven risk factor of hypertension and stress as also a proven risk factor of hypertension. So why have we taken this? We have taken this because in trying to elicit whether smoking is a risk factor for hypertension, if we forget these two factors, then we can be landing up in something known as, we won't be able to the exact impact of smoking on hypertension. Okay. So we have to take the other factors that may cause hypertension, which you will be getting in the review of literature. So these are the background independent variable. We have got techniques of adjusting these background independent variables in our research, in statistical methods, and also in research design, so that we get the exact impact of smoking on hypertension. The next part is, I want to mention of something known as confounding factor. You can see that this circle is lying comfortably below this line, and it is hitting both the smoking and the hypertension. Sex. So what is sex? Maybe males smoke higher. So when you are measuring hypertension, maybe you are finding that the males have more hypertension than the females. But actually the males smoke higher. That's why the males we are having more hypertension than the females. So in this case, you have to do something like, you have to take the confounder into your effect. The confounder should be taken into the model so that you can adjust for the confounders. If you can look at this variable, it is a factor as represented in the conceptual framework. So actually the variable, we are yet to define the variable. We shall mention the sex, smoking, etc. as factors only. Now I'm coming to the next part. So now, by now you have got the research question in your mind, and you have also got the conceptual framework in your mind. Okay. So we are coming to the next slide. Now, from this conceptual framework, we shall be trying to devise the variables. Let's see how that happens. So here, as Dr. Shamantu said rightly, your objective will be very crisp. I have tried to divide the different parts of the objective to find out is the action verb, the relationship between smoking and hypertension in the study population. So this is your objective. Now we have to write the conceptual framework which was in the diagram, in the paper, in the whiteboard, in our head, into something more tangible. We have to convert that into tangible so that we can measure the variables, so that they can be calculated. We can do sophisticated statistical techniques on them, and we get some kind of a result. So what is a variable? Variable is anything that varies. It is actually the characteristics of a person, object, or phenomena which can take different values. So sex can be a variable. It can be male, female, others, etc. Age can be a variable. So most of the things can be a variable, but there can be some things which may not vary. Suppose if a person is born, he will like he is going to die someday or other. So in that case, that is not a variable. That is a confirmed fact or a truth of life. Okay. So now coming to the different types of variable. Variable can be of several types based on how we want to manage them or how we want to take them into statistical tests. It can be categorical and numerical. So what is a categorical variable? Categorical variable are something which you cannot express by numbers. Suppose sex. Sex is either male or female. Suppose religion. It is Hindu, Muslim, Christian. Suppose a particular clinical intervention, drug A or drug B. So that becomes a categorical variable. This categorical variable is again classified into nominal and ordinal types. What is a nominal variable? Nominal variables are those categorical variables which do not have any particular order between them. Male, female, others. They do not follow a particular order between them. So what is an order? Suppose you are trying to classify tumors. It will be no tumor, mild, moderate, severe, something like that. The staging of tumors. So whenever you have a particular order between the categorical variables, it becomes an ordinal variable. In the categorical variables, they are mutually exclusive and exhaustive. That is, one variable is completely separate from the other. You cannot go from one variable to another. And also, these variables are exhaustive. That is, if you want to discuss a particular variable, the number of categories it have shall be discussing the whole of the variable. If you are getting confused, let me give an example which I faced today. Marital status. Somebody wrote that marital status can be unmarried, unmarried or married. He just wrote that. I mentioned that if a person is separated or divorced, so where will he go? He cannot go to unmarried. Okay. So you have to devise the categories in such a manner that all kinds of persons can fall in any one of the categories. And these categories are mutually exclusive. Also, the numeric variables are those variables where you can assign numbers like weight, like age, like depression score, like Glasgow Coma scale. All of them has got numbers. So in these variables, you can assign a number to the variable and they are either in the interval and the ratio scale. Dr. Tiwari will be talking about more of these variables, but whenever you are devising the variable from the conceptual framework, you need to have how it will look like when you are entering that in the Excel sheet or in the SPSS. You need to have that in your mind. If you do not have that in your mind, then you will devise the questionnaire, you will do the study, and you will come up with a lot of responses, which is very difficult to analyze. So whenever you are devising the variable, always keep in mind that you need to think of how it will look in the Excel sheet. Now let us come to an example. So from the conceptual framework, you have now gone to the variables. We have mentioned the conceptual framework as something which is a representation of the research question. And we have mentioned that variables are something which are actually trying to convert those conceptual frameworks into a tangible research question. Okay. So, right. So now in the next stage, you have decided on the variables, you have decided about how they will be looking in the Excel sheet. Now you have to operationalize them. And what is operationalizing the variable? Suppose in a example we were giving, we told about impact of smoking on hypertension. So let us come to this only. Here smoking was the main independent variable, hypertension is the dependent variable, sex was the confounding factor, salt intake was the, and stress were the background independent variables. So smoking is a very abstract term. How will you measure smoking? You can use the type of tobacco used. You can use the frequency of its use. So how will you operationalize the tobacco use? By saying whether he was smoking cigarette, bidi or others. So that will make it a categorical variable. That is the scale of measurement. Frequency of use we can divide into two parts. One, we can say number of products used per day, which will be a numerical variable, and number of days per week the products are used, which will be again a numerical variable. Next, we want to measure hypertension. So how to measure hypertension? Again, a very vague term. I categorically kept this example because this hypertension is one variable that can be measured in both categorical and as a numeric variable. You can keep the hypertension results as only numbers. Okay. And you can also assign or convert these numbers into a classification of hypertension according to the JNC 7 guidelines. So let us come to the factor. So systolic and diastolic BP can be, if you are wanting to like keep it in the numeric form, and you can operationalize it that you shall be doing a three readings of hypertension in sitting position by sphygmomanometer of company XXX. So you can go up to this level of operationalization where you will maintain even the company of the sphygmomanometer. You shall take an average of the three readings and you will be a numeric variable. You can also categorize this hypertension reading you got into normotensive, prehypertensive, stage 1, stage 2 hypertensive according to JNC 7 guideline. And in this case, the variable will be a categorical variable. So now you see that even a single variable can be expressed as both categoric and numeric variables according to your own wish. Now I shall ask you that suppose we are talking about sex. So how will you operationalize that? What shall be the variables and what will be the scale of measurement? Write in the chat box, please. Suppose we want to measure sex. So what will be the variable? How can we want to operationalize that? Or what can be the scale of measurement? Please type in your chat box. Okay, sex is a categorical variable, right? So the thank you, Devanjan, for your answer. So it's male or female. It's a categorical and others, and you operationalize it that just ask a person, or you don't even have to ask that. You look at a person and mention his sex. I think asking can be a better option now. Okay. Anyways, if you talk about salt, salt intake can be, yes, it can be calculated numerically, right? So you can actually ask the amount of salt consumed by the person in the last 1 day, because he will be unable to recall the amount of salt in the last 1 week. Okay. So you can ask how much of salt you have taken in the last 1 week or last 1 day, and it will be a numeric variable, right? You can do that. Also, so you're getting the point. That is a very good thing. Thank you, Dr. Deepan, for answering, Dr. Shonnava for answering. Now I am coming to stress. So I mentioned this stress thing because stress is not a factor which we often can classify or measure in a very good manner. So the variable we shall be discussing is the perceived stress, and the instrument we shall be using or operationalizing with the help of a perceived stress questionnaire as validated by these scientists with convex alpha, these properties. So actually for measuring the psychological constructs, there are tools like they call that tools only. Like for measuring weight, we have a machine. Like measuring height, we have got a sediometer. So for measuring the psychological constructs also, they have got particular tools. And the psychological construct or the factor has to be operationalized with that particular tool only. Okay. So that's how we are able to operationalize a variable. So please think about what we have been doing. We had the research question in mind, which was coming to us with discussion of the like review of literature. From the research question, we devised a objective. We devised our objective, and from that objective, we devised our conceptual frameworks. So actually, that objective and conceptual framework goes hand in hand. And from that conceptual framework and objective, we are now trying to measure the abstract things as some measurable, tangible indicators, which are known as variables. And next, we are trying to operationalize the variables, and we are using some scales of measurement. Okay, so up to this, I think it is quite clear to you. Now, once you have decided on the variable, if you can remember the diagram which I discussed, I mentioned variables, tools, and techniques together, because you again have to like link them together. Otherwise, you cannot do your study. How? Suppose I am talking of an occupational health study which we had done. Now, this study was done in a jute factory, and we had to look at the respiratory morbidity. So this looking at the respiratory morbidity can be done in many ways. A particular person can tell that we want the best of tools. We want to measure the morbidity with the very good spirometer, and we also want to measure the morbidity with a HRCT, which will pick up even the minutest of like structural anomaly of the lung. You can do that, but itna paisa nahi hai. We do not have got that much of fund. So we step down. We decide, okay, fine, parameter. So the result will be not as good as but be somewhat valid. पैसा फिर भी नहीं है, funding और भी कम है. So now what we will do? We will have to ask the person about some respiratory questions like, do you have shortness of breath? Do you cough? Something like that. So from a very objective measurement of lung structure and function, we went to a subjective measurement because of fund crunch. So your tools became somewhat downgraded, but still you can do the study. But as I mentioned, no study can be perfect. So you are happy with this study only with your funds allocated. So that is why tools, techniques, and your variables goes hand in hand along with their operationalization. Okay. So what can be the techniques of data collection? The easiest way is secondary data. What is secondary data? The data which is already being captured in some system. So like I personally work in TB. In TB, there are a lot of data in the DRTB center, and also in the PMDT management guidelines. And a particular scientist can go ask for the data to proper channel and take up the study. That is perfectly acceptable. But there is a secondary data study. And with the secondary data study, your study becomes very easy, and you can get a large amount of data, but many journals feel stuck. It is secondary data. You will have happier with the primary data. But specific areas, you need to do a primary survey. The next technique of data collection is observing. So we as clinicians do these things continuously, this observation. Even in public health, we do these observations. So what are these observations? We do clinical examination, auscultation, palpation, percussion, etc. We can do biochemical tests in laboratories. Some biochemical parameter we can measure. There can be some pathological parameters we can measure. There can be some radiological parameters we measure. It can be in a public health, some system analysis by checklist. It can be a survey of a particular behavior. Suppose we want to see how the vaccinator is behaving. So even then we can use a observation checklist. Okay. So these things can be done by observing. Next is interviewing. You are doing interviewing all the time, right? You are taking history. In public health, we do a lot of interviewing. We ask the person. We have got some specialized techniques on the focus group discussions or qualitative research, which is outside the purview of this today's discussion. So what is intelligence? And we also administer to all the persons, and then we get back the answers as anonymous and confidential answers to do a survey. So these are the techniques of data collection. Now we are trying to combine the tools with the techniques. Tools is get out of your mind. Tools is anything with a machine. Tools is anything, any device with the help of you, which you are eliciting the data. All of them are tools. It can be paper, it can be a person, it can be checklist, it can be an instrument, anything can be a tool, right? So the technique was available information. The tools can be checked. For ENT persons, you can use an otoscope. For eye ophthalmology persons, you can use a retinoscope. You can use a slit lamp microscope. All kinds of instruments are available. For pathologists, you can use a microscope. Your like other sophisticated techniques. For a microbiologist, you can use a culture media. So all of them are observations, and you are using a subject-specific instrument. For interviewing, you are using what? Pen, pencil, checklist, questionnaire, tape recorder can be used. In fact, for interviewing, it is said that even the interviewer is a tool, because a lot depends on the type of interviewer. He has to be very well trained to take a particular proper interview. The last part is administering a written questionnaire. As I discussed already, it can be paper or virtual. So now you have got the techniques in your mind and you have got the tools in your mind. So there are some advantages and disadvantages of each of these tools and techniques. Like available information, I already mentioned, it is inexpensive, but data is not always accessible. Data can be confidential. Information may be imprecise or incomplete. For observation, it gives more detailed and context-related information. Permits test of reliability, permits collection of interview on facts not mentioned in an interview. But in observation, ethical issues are very high. Somnath sir will discuss about that. You have to be ethically very clear about observation. Confidential or privacy issues may arise. Even the presence of data collector can influence the situation observed. This is known as a Hawthorne effect. Presence of a data collection, how is he taking the data, can change the behavior of the person. It is very true. Like if a particular person is looking at your day-to-day work, you shall be trying to do your work in a more precise way, in a better way. So maybe the recording will not be good. So often nowadays people use hidden cameras to record the behaviors after taking proper ethical permission. For interviewing, it can be used for both literates and illiterates. It permits clarification of questions. That is a very important part. And it has got a higher response rate than written questionnaires. We have seen that in school surveys. But again, the presence of interview can influence response. Even the way the question is asked, the tonality of the interviewer can differentiate the response elicited. Okay. And in case of administering written questionnaire, it is less expensive, does not require research assistance much, permits anonymity, but it is cannot be used in illiterate respondents, and often there is a very low rate of response. Okay. So these are some of the positive and negative points of each of these tools and techniques. So my suggestion to you is that for your proposal and even in a thesis, you can try such a table. What kind of a table is that? In this table, in the topmost part, write the objective, because your entire analysis, your entire thesis work, your entire data collection tool will depend on the objective. So write the objective very boldly on top of the table so that you do not deviate from the objective. Keep that in mind. Next, in the first part, write the factor. You can write the factor or keep it in your mind also. The factor, I said, like smoking, you keep the factor in your mind. Whenever you have got the objective, the factors will come automatically. Next, you write the variable. The variable you are going to use for eliciting that particular factor. You can link the factor with the variable now. Next, think of how we are going to operationalize the variable. You make an operational definition of the variable which is feasible, acceptable, accessible, cheap, etc. Make an operational definition of the variable. This operational definition need not be written in the materials and methods, but it can be attached in the annexure. Next, once you have operationalized a variable, write the tools. The tool you are using for capturing your variable. This should be written in your materials and methods. And with the tools comes the technique. Suppose you are using for sex, you are using tools as a pre-designed, pre-tested questionnaire. So that will be your tool, and technique will be interview. So tool and technique goes hand in hand. And always keep the scale of measurement in your mind. Always keep it in mind. You do not need to write that down, but if you do not keep it in your mind, then your Excel sheet will give you a lot of trouble, trust me. So keep in mind how you are going to arrange this data capture in your Excel sheet. Okay, so you can use this template for devising a very good questionnaire, and this will link your research question with your Excel sheet. And after the Excel sheet, it is the work of Dr. Tiwari. Okay, so keep this framework in your mind. Now coming to some of the biases regarding tools and techniques, what may happen. First is the observer bias. So you can be a very biased observer, like you are devising a new surgical technique and you think that this technique is the best. So whenever you are observing the wound of the patient, you are saying that this is the new technique, so this is getting better. So this is an observer bias purely. Even if you are not biased to that extent, observer bias may creep in. So one way of eliminating observer bias is blinding. Okay, so that will be discussed by Shati madam tomorrow. You can have an instrument bias. Your instrument is not made well. It has got some validity and reliability problems. I am not going into the details of validity and reliability. They are extremely interesting topic, but out of the scope of this small session. Instrument bias occurs when suppose you are devising an instrument to measure weight and somehow the calibration is not proper. So your weight is constantly 2 kgs above. Okay, this gives rise to the systematic bias. Suppose you are devising an instrument to measure stress and instead you are measuring something else, anxiety, something else, I do not know. So that will be an instrument bias. Hawthorne effect we already discussed. You can tell about Hawthorne effect, read about Hawthorne effect. It's a very interesting experiment which they did. And there can be information gap also, which is very common in the, what should I say, secondary data, where a lot of missing data or wrongly placed data is there. So there are a lot of ethical considerations also. These ethical considerations we shall be discussing with the help of Somnath sir on Sunday, I think. So I'm ending my presentation here. If there are any questions, you can ask in the chat box, and I have also shared with you the attendance link. So please fill up the attendance link, because those persons who have filled up the 3-day attendance link only will be getting the certificates. Otherwise, you are not going to get the certificate. So you can type in your question also. Please fill up the attendance link, and